Spock realized that this cloud that they'd gone through was like this emotional energy. And it had kind of infused their minds and was feeding off both the Romulans and the Enterprise crew, the human crew. Like the more agitated any of these people got, the more this cloud got nourished and fed. And Spock becomes aware that this energy is now thriving on the emotions that these two groups are generating. And it doesn't care the outcome of the conflict. It's just like, this is food for me. But I think we see the stories, the thoughts the mind tells, we get caught up in the emotion, but to really see, to observe it, we're like, when we're dealing with our mind, the ego reactions, these forces, we're like the flea riding on the tail of a dog. You know, we've got this little bit that we can grasp a hold of, and we've got this hair or this bit of skin, and we're like, this is what we can perceive, but there's this whole other tail, and it's connected to this whole other body and this whole other being that's doing something else. And so we don't see what's wagging this tail around that's taking us for the ride. We see the thoughts, maybe we feel the emotions, we get caught up in the story. Afterwards, we go to, what was that? But we don't have a really good picture. What really was that thing that took us for a ride? Somewhat like the Matrix, you can't see it till you're outside of it. No one can tell you because they give you words, but unless you can translate those words to the proper meaning, that only comes with experience, you don't know what those words mean. I'll give it a go anyways. So there was a Star Trek episode. The old Star Trek. And there was, you know, the Enterprise crew, and then there was a whole group of other, from this other race, you know, Romulans or somebody like that. And they had come in contact with them. They were trying to have a meeting to work out some peace agreement, perhaps, but they'd gone through this cloud or something. And they were trying to have these conversations, these meetings and agreements, but they were just getting derailed, and people were becoming more and more agitated and adversarial to each other, and fearful of each other and angry at each other, and into this frenzy. And it must have been Spock. I don't remember the episode specifics, but I remember the specific scene to the end. Spock realized that this cloud that they'd gone through was like this emotional energy. And it had kind of infused their minds and was feeding off both the Romulans and the Enterprise crew, the human crew. Like the more agitated any of these people got, the more this cloud got nourished and fed. I was like, yes. And they had some sparkly, you know, kind of 1970s graphics, whatever the CGI was in the day. You'd see it get brighter and faster as these two groups were arguing. And Spock becomes aware that this energy is now thriving on the emotions that these two groups are generating. And it doesn't care the outcome of the conflict. It's just like, this is food for me, what I live on. And Spock somehow gets Captain Kirk's attention and gets him clued into it. And he gets some of the other prize clues into it. And Kirk is able to get the Romulans or whatever this other group's attention, says, we are being played here. It looks like our group against your group, but we're just being toyed with because this other energy is dreaming us, has infused in us its tentacles, this etherical energy, tentacles of emotion, and pushing us to be fearful and angry and fighting, primal animal driven, argumentative. And they become aware that these two humans being clashed, each was being dreamed to make the other, the adversary, when in fact, they didn't even see the actual adversary. The actual adversary was this invisible ghost-like dream made of emotion, made of stories and ideas that was driving through them, that they were being played into, seduced into. And when they caught sight of this, they recognized to some degree we are not even acting on our own behalf. This is not good for us. There is this other thing in the space. They got the clever idea of, if it's thrilled and feeding on our anger and our fear and our agitation, let's not give it that. And they decided, let's laugh and be joyful. And then instead of putting their attention on each other with their laughter and their joyfulness, say, let's laugh at it. Began to see and notice, if we laugh at it, it couldn't stand it. It didn't know what to do with that. That wasn't food at all. That repelled it. You know, they didn't take it seriously at all. They didn't believe in it. It was just a funny, silly thing. They took their faith out of the idea of it, the seriousness of it, the right, wrong, push, pull game of it. And they direct their attention to the cloud. They're like, I see you. And the thing about laughter is, real laughter is like, there's no judgment, there's no victimization. It's just joyful. And so all of these people that were fighting each other and arguing and almost coming to blows, they have their arms around each other, and together they're laughing at the dream, the ghost dream. That's the waking up to what these forces are like, the ego mind. the forces that take over whole groups of people, one political party A versus political party B, are these big ghost-like dreams. Okay. Vaccine, anti-vaccine. Okay. Higher taxes, more taxes, less taxes. Right? Healthcare, no government healthcare. Okay. We should go to war. We should have peace. Support Ukraine. Can't afford the money. Like, there's an infusion of faith into these clouds, ghost-like clouds, that make up the matrix that we're plugged into energetically, emotionally, and through the faith and the ideas that float around. And these ideas would happily have us fight one another because that maximizes our intensity, our faith, our grabbing hold of more survival ideas for safety and control and fear and anger. Like, we invest more intensely in those survival emotions. So they get more food. Those clouds are strengthened. And in this way, we're feeding, giving to the ego of our own mind and the collective unconscious ego of all the group minds. We're giving our energy, we're giving our emotions to it, we're giving our faith, our personal power into the ideas that flow through that energy field. And Jung called it the collective unconscious. Miguel calls it the dream of the planet. Call it Maya, Mara. It's been around for a long time and it's got many names. Call it Satan, the adversary. It's a ghost-like cloud of emotional energy and ideas. And we all have our own personal version of it, our own ego mind to deal with. And everybody has their personal version of it. And together we have a collective human mind filled with ideas, 8 billion plus humans with multiple ideas, all sorts of flavors. And it looks like emotion, it feels like emotion is what it's getting, but it's really a byproduct. The real fuel is personal power. And your personal power is the faith, the energy of conviction that you put into ideas. This is its strongest fuel. And so skepticism, when you don't believe the story, you take your faith out of the story, this commodity of faith, the energy, personal power, energy of faith, conviction, out of these ideas. Well, A, you're strengthened. You aren't bleeding off your energy into your ego mind and collective unconscious. You have more personal power. Your ego mind has less. You have an opportunity to choose where you didn't before. Choose how you feel, what you do. You could laugh more instead of fight with other humans or argue with other humans. But the strength of the energetic ghost field of the collective unconscious is lessened. The challenge humanity has is we spend a lot of times fighting one another over ideas, and the collective field says, great, because it doesn't really care what the answer, what we do with that. It's just like, just keep fighting and keep people grounded in their conviction and fearful and threatening, and fuse their faith in these positional ideas. Because the more that we are attached to these ideas, the more that these ideas control us, control our attention, steer our emotions, take us for a ride. On the tail of this dog that's wagging us, we don't even see where it's headed. Okay? So it's the clinging to by investing faith in ideas that have us entrained into stories that then generate emotions. Okay? That then whipsaw us up and down into suffering. And so this is why so much of what I've focused the course on, the self-mastery course, is what do you believe? What is your investment in the story? Step outside the story, be neutral, detach, question the assumptions underneath that story, and take your faith out of the ideas and the stories and the characters and the mind, and return it to yourself. Because this is the way you can have peace internally, and you can exit this battling conversation in your own head or with other people that's adversarial, and get to some peace internally and externally in your relationships. It's about the faith you have in ideas, which is basically, what do you believe? Not just the thoughts, but what are your beliefs? And how much are they controlling you? By controlling your attention. And in the Star Trek show, great, they figured it all out in a half hour. They got out of their stories and they started laughing at the dream. It was dreaming now. In the 24 minutes that a series show takes, right? You know, now the belief that it has to take longer, has to be dragged out, or it's a really hard process. Ooh, there's a story we could take our faith out of too, huh? Oh, it takes a really long time. You have to work really hard. Like, maybe, but maybe not. Maybe we take our faith out of that and go, I don't know. But however long it takes, it's probably worth doing. It's my experience. Is this mental model, or this model of thinking as this etheric ghost energy field, helpful?